Whether it's cars, comics, video games, or violins, there's a little geek in all of us. It's time to give your geek a voice. It's time for Geek Therapy. Here's your host, Johnny Hamburger.
The Houston Astros are the 2017 World Series champions. That's right, Houston. The Houston Astros are the World Series champions. They're the champions of the world. Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio, where I am still in shock that the Houston Astros have won the World Series. My goodness. And it's okay to geek out about baseball right now, especially after the year Houston has had with Hurricane Harvey and any other personal issues that anyone's had this year. Our city, our team, the Houston Astros winning the World Series is indescribable in what it's done for our city. Oh my goodness. I can't believe it. So I was going to start out. My name's Johnny Hamburger, by the way. I'm the host of Geek Therapy Radio. Welcome to the show, where we have fun geeking out about all sorts of things, and where I truly believe that we are all geeks about something. From cars to trains to comics to the stars, we are all geeks about something. So right now, you bet your butt that we are going to geek out about the Houston Astros. I promise you the rest of the show is filled with actual geek topics. Not that the Astros aren't an actual geek topic, but Razer has released their first smartphone that's built especially for mobile gamers. Nvidia releases the GTX 1070Ti. The new Last Jedi trailers come out. The new Star Wars trailer. What else has happened? All sorts of different things that we'll talk about. Chevy beats Tesla in electric vehicle sales. Anyways, more topics that we'll get into. But I just wanted to use this first segment to share my Houston Astros story, what the team means to me. As I've probably stated maybe once or twice on the show, I grew up in a Red Sox house. If you're watching the YouTube, you can see my coffee mug here that I've been using for years is a Red Sox coffee mug. That is currently filled with pumpkin spice coffee. Well, the coffee isn't pumpkin spice. The creamer is pumpkin spice flavored. So I am going basic today. I am going basic with my pumpkin spice creamer. But anyways, raised in a Red Sox house because my mom and dad are from the Northeast, from Boston. They met in Boston. My dad grew up in Boston. So yeah, it's been a Red Sox house. But we moved to this city in 1989 when I was 6 years old. And my dad also, of course, liked the Astros. And we went to countless Astros games. I have fond memories of the Astrodome. I have fond memories in the Astrodome. I still remember the orange and yellow seats of the Astrodome. I still remember the souvenir shops in the Astrodome and walking around that long, round foyer, whatever you want to call it, at the end of each section around all the souvenir shops and the hot dog stands. And oh, man, fond memories at the Astrodome. So fond memories at the Astrodome, then fond memories at Enron Field, Astros Field. What did they call it for 10 seconds in between Enron and Minute Maid? Was it the Astros Field or Astros Park? I think it was Astros Field. So Enron Field, Astros Field with an asterisk by it, and then Minute Maid Park. I can't even begin to guess how many Astros games I've been to, although I will admit that, you know, the Astros were never a great team, but over the past 3 years, before 2017, they were god-awful. 100-plus losses a season. That's when I got my start in radio, by the way, is I started board opping, training as a board op over on Sports Talk 790. And I was the board op / producer for Charlie Palillo. And I was getting my radio chops in the dog days of summer. The dog days of summer in between basketball and football, where baseball was the only thing happening, and our Houston Astros were losing 100-plus games a season. So, remember driving to work or riding my motorcycle to work. It's 100 degrees outside. Nothing's going on in sports. And going to work with Charlie Palillo, who Charlie Palillo is a wizard of sports. That guy has an encyclopedic knowledge of all things sports. He is a sports geek through and through. Just a straight up genius. So, yeah, I got my start in radio working at Sports Talk 790, basically talking about the Astros during the dog days of summer. I wasn't talking about it, but Charlie was talking about it. And I'd pipe up every now and then. Anyway, so one of my fondest memories at the Astrodome, and I forget what year this was. It was the 90s when the Braves were winning everything. It was the 90s, and we were sitting first base side, and I told Jeff Bagwell, while I yelled to him, "Hit a home run!" And he didn't acknowledge it. I know he heard me because we were close enough for him to hear me. I was like, "Hit a home run, Jeff Bagwell, or Mr. Bagwell," or whatever I said. I would go insane at Astros games. It was little nerd me with my thick Coke bottle glasses going nuts at Astros games, cheering on Jeff Bagwell and Craig Biggio and the rest of them. So I told Jeff Bagwell, "Hit a home run." I just thought I was being cute. I didn't actually expect him to hit a home run or anything. So he gets up to the plate and he takes his squat. And if you remember Jeff Bagwell's batting stance, he squats real low. It's weird looking. There's a couple other guys that I noticed this season taking a Jeff Bagwell-esque batting stance. But so anyways, Bagwell gets up to bat, takes his low squat, and I don't remember the pitch count. It might have been the first pitch. I don't think it was the first pitch. But anyways, home run. And I forget what part of the field, center field, left field, right field. Astrodome field was very symmetrical. It wasn't like Minute Maid Park is with all the juts and jagged edges like old fields have, like Fenway Park. Minute Maid Park center field, left center field is very similar to Fenway. Of course, you got the Crawford seats above our version of the Green Monster. That's a direct copy, a direct homage to the Green Monster in Fenway. And then you have the little jut, that little angle around the seats in left center field that's taken George Springer a little while to manage, and that I believe bit him in the butt in Fenway once. Ultimately, the Astros would beat the Red Sox. But anyways, back to the Astrodome and telling Jeff Bagwell to hit a home run. He did. And as he's trotting to first base, he looks over to me. I don't know if he was looking me directly in the eye, but he was looking over because he definitely heard me scream, "Hit a home run!" So he looked over in my general direction and gave like a thumbs up. So that was really, really cool. I also remember getting on the Jumbotron, the big screen at the Astrodome, quite a few times. My dad was in the media, so basically he would just tell the camera guy to pan over to his cute kids. But anyways, that's my memories at the Astrodome. That's my memories with the Astros. I could go on and on forever, but all I wanted to say is get out my Houston Astros memories. I used to play varsity baseball. I lettered in it, so that was pretty fun. I've got baseball in my heart. My arm is bummed now. I have got a few 100% velocity throws in my arm left at any given point, but 2 or 3, and it hurts again. I've got a click in my shoulder, but I got a few in me at any given moment. But yeah, that's all I wanted to get out. Houston Astros 2017 World Series champions. Houston is now a destination city. We are now the defending champions of the trophy. So thank you guys. Thank you, Springer and Correa and Altuve MVP. Thank you for the World Series win to a very downtrodden city this year. We'll be back with more Geek Therapy Radio. Let's get on to actual geek topics. My name is Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator for this evening. Thank you for sticking with me so far in the first segment. We're going to have a lot of fun. We are nerds. We're all nerds. You listening right now, you're a nerd about something. I promise you. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. I'm Johnny Hamburger. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hamburger. We're all geeks about something. You listening right now, you're a geek about something. Whether it's cars or music, either listening to it or making it, you're a geek about that. You could be a geek about Legos, buddy. You can be a geek about cooking. I haven't even mentioned that. You can be a geek about cooking. Now I'm thinking about all sorts of delicious noms. I told you we were going to get basic on this show, so I got to use the word noms. No offense, as I take a sip from my pumpkin spice coffee. Num, 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 num. All the nums. Welcome back, Geek Therapy Radio. I promise we're going to get onto some geek topics, and we will. Do you remember that show, that reality show, The Biggest Loser? Well, they followed several of them around for a few years after the show, and they have discovered that The Biggest Loser contestants must exercise like crazy to keep the weight off. You don't say! Are you telling me that if you lose 100 pounds, you have to keep exercising to keep the weight off? Fascinating, titillating, extraordinary information. But I'm not just being a nugget of I'm not just being a butthead. And actually, they figured out that since people who lose such drastic amounts of weight have to work extra hard to keep it off. Extra hard. So the study isn't just that you have to work out to keep weight off. It's that if you lose an extreme amount of weight in a short amount of time, like The Biggest Loser people do, you have to work extra hard, way harder than anybody else to keep it off. And I can only figure that that's because, and again, I promise this segment we're going to talk about the new Razer smartphone. But I can only imagine that if let's say you've lost 100 pounds in a short amount of time, that you need to do extra work to keep it off. It's because, and I'm just guessing, maybe any medical or dietitians out there, nutritionists can weigh in on this on Facebook or on YouTube, Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook or YouTube. Maybe you can weigh in on this. Get it? Weigh in on this. I think when you lose 100 pounds real fast, you have to do all the extra work to keep it off because your body probably, and again, I'm just guessing, your body that's been the status quo of your body, of your metabolism. So basically, when you lose a drastic amount of weight real fast, your body is like, oh crap, I'm dying. Let's slow down my metabolism to store up fat because I'm not eating as much and everything I'm eating is burned. So let's slow down the fat burning process. Let's store more of this fat in our food because your body, the status quo has been drastically changed. So if you lose 100 pounds in 6 months or whatever it is, your body basically thinks it's dying. You're not dying. Your body thinks it's starving. Even though you could go from 300 to 200 pounds, you're still, depending on your height and everything, you're still technically overweight. You're still eons better than you were as far as health is concerned. But if your body loses 100 pounds real quick, let's say you go from 500 to 400, your body still thinks it's starving, which it's not, but it's still a shock to the status quo of your system. So that makes sense that if you are losing that much body weight real fast, then you have to really work extra hard to keep it off and to keep losing weight. So I wasn't just being a little turd nugget at the beginning of this segment. You know what? I heard the most awesome term that I haven't heard in a long time. One of my Facebook friends, Tom, who's in a band, and Tom, if you're listening, what up, brah? I think he called one of the Dodgers, one of the LA Dodgers. Can you see what I was just scratching down there? Hope not. He called one of the LA Dodgers fartknocker. I haven't heard the term fartknocker in forever, and I told him clickety-clickety-click on Facebook. I'm stealing that phrase because I haven't heard that in a long time, and it's awesome, and now I'm going to use it and incorporate it into my daily vocabulary, my repertoire of insults, which I don't give a ton of insults. I'm not that kind of guy. But I'm just going to be chomping at the bit to see someone do something stupid in public and be, oh, fartknocker, you're a fartknocker. That's the most I've ever yelled on Geek Therapy Radio, and it was to say fartknocker. I might label this segment on YouTube just fartknocker. I'm not going to label it Razer phone. It's going to be fartknocker. A ghost just pushed close the DeLorean model's door right now. Or my hands slamming on things. Okay. Razer phone. Actually, I can call Razer a fartknocker. And then later on, next segment, I can call Nvidia a fartknocker for the 1070 Ti. But let me tell you why Razer, the company Razer, who builds gaming laptops and gaming peripherals for way more than they're worth in components. Anyways, why Razer's a fartknocker with their new flagship phone. The phone is great. Again, I have long maintained that the modern smartphone industry has plateaued over the last 3 to 5 years. Honestly, my Samsung Galaxy Note 4 is 95% as good in every measurable way, if not better, than any modern flagship phone, than the Galaxy Note 8 that just came out. This Note 4 that came out in 2014, I believe, is 95% as good as a $900 phone. So anyways, the new Razer phone is wonderful. It's standout features because I need to say it's standout features because the CPU isn't standout, the GPU isn't standout, the screen is standout. It's 120 hertz refresh rate. The Apple iPad Pro that came out recently has, what is it? What did they go? Retina Vision or whatever Apple. Anyways, it's 120 up to 120 hertz refresh rate screen. For those geeks among us who might not know why refresh rates and frames per second matter, think about a movie. When you're watching a movie and it has that cinematic feel to it, it's because you're watching each picture go by at 24 frames per second. If you tried to play a video game at 24 frames per second, it would not fly. There's not a gamer alive who would take hook, line, and sinker the value of this game has a cinematic feel. No, cinematic just means 24 frames per second. It means the game is poorly optimized and sucks. Gamers want at least 60 frames per second. And if you're a gamer who plays competitive games like CSGO or even Rocket League, you want at least 120 frames per second. And this phone has 120 frames per second, 120 hertz. That's the refresh rate of every frame on the phone, 120 hertz. So if you're playing your mobile games, it's at 120 hertz. I go back to Rocket League at 120 hertz. I don't play it at 120 hertz because I don't have a 120 hertz monitor or TV. There's not many true 120 megahertz, 120 hertz TVs. But anyways, so let me get to why 120 hertz on a phone on a gaming phone, quote unquote, is kind of stupid. It's dumb to me. This is why Razer's a fartknocker, is because they excluded the only feature that I really want in a gaming smartphone. If Sony released a Sony Xperia again in 2017 or 18, I will purchase it at any price. And let me tell you why. Because the old Sony Xperia had flip-out physical controls. And if you were going to call your device a gaming device, you need physical controls. You need the joystick. You need the thumbsticks. You need the D-pad. You need all the buttons and the shoulder buttons. That's what you need on if you're going to call your device a gaming device. To call this smartphone a gaming smartphone. A gaming smartphone to do what? Candy Crush? That's stupid. And there are a couple of games that I can think of on the App Store or on Google Play that use the touchscreen and motion sensing very effectively and very fun. Real Racing, that's one game. Asphalt, the Asphalt games are great. Both of those car racing games are great. Of course, Angry Birds uses the touchscreen very well. Candy Crush uses the touchscreen. Fruit Ninja, all that stuff uses the touchscreen very well. But are you seriously calling yourself a gamer if you're really good at Angry Birds? Can you call yourself a gamer or be have any respect whatsoever for yourself if you're a gamer who's really good at Candy Crush or Fruit Ninja or even Asphalt? No! So why'd you call this device a gaming smartphone? That's not... I already have a beef with the term gamer in general, and I won't really get into it, but it's a stretch to think of people are called gamers athletes. I love gaming. I am a gamer. I love playing Rocket League ad nauseum. Street Fighter is my ish. That's my joint. I play it competitively. And so I am a gamer. Do I consider myself an athlete? Hell to the no. No. I'm sorry. Do you need quick reflexes like an athlete to be a competitive gamer? Yes, absolutely you do. But you don't need to be 6'5", 240 pounds of pure muscle to be a gamer. You can. There's nothing that's saying you can't be a muscle-bound hunk and be a gamer. But is your athleticism going to have any advantage over the 300-pound person sitting next to you? No, it's not. Because you are sitting. Any sport that involves you sitting down for 12 hours at a time, that's not an athlete. You can still be a gamer, but it's just not an athlete. Gamers are not, when they're gaming, they're not being athletes. A gamer can be an athlete outside of gaming, but while they're gaming, holding that controller or mouse and keyboard, it's hardly an athlete. Being a gamer doesn't make you an athlete. So anyways, my beef with the Razer phone is that it doesn't have physical controls. And I know you're thinking, Johnny, you stupid idiot. Why would a smartphone have physical controls? That's dumb. Well, I kind of agree a little bit. So you shouldn't call this a gamer phone. If it doesn't have physical controls, don't say it's a gamer phone. What I want in a phone that's called a gamer phone is a Kick A GPU, graphics processing unit, and physical controls slide out like Sony PSP controls or something like that. You can make a phone like that. You can add another millimeter or two. I don't care. Just make it so that the game controls, they slide out or they flip out. Physical controls. That's what makes a gaming device a gaming device. So that aside, the Razer phone does look really good. I'm not going to buy one because it's hella expensive. Yeah, I said hella. Deal with it. All the specs are great. It's got a DAC. It's THX certified. By the way, Razer bought THX. So, of course, it's the first phone to be THX certified with Dolby Atmos. Razer bought THX. That's dumb. And what kind of Atmos sound Dolby Atmos are you going to get from a smartphone? I do love, though, I do adore that the phone has huge bezels on top and bottom. By huge, I mean half an inch. Huge bezels that house speakers. And apparently those speakers are really good. And I'm not saying that the speaker quality for a smartphone isn't going to be just astonishing, but THX in a smartphone, that's kind of like putting 20s on a Volkswagen Beetle, or putting like racing slicks on a Volkswagen Beetle. What? A stock VW Bug, and I'm not talking even about a new one. I'm talking about an old 1974 Beetle, unmodified. The only thing it has is racing slicks. That's what a THX certified phone is, in my mind. Is it a great phone? Absolutely. It looks amazing. I love how it's chunky and rectangular, and I love that the big bezels on the top and bottom are to house front-facing stereo speakers. Cell phone speakers suck so bad. The bottom firing speaker, or the only thing that I don't like about this Note is the back firing speaker. That's dumb. I would take some more bezel on the top and bottom to have front firing speakers. So Razer knocked it out of the park as far as the design of the phone. The only area that I think that Razer dulled is that they did not have physical buttons that flip out on a gaming smartphone. 120 hertz is nice. Everything about the phone is state of the art. But why you call it a gaming phone if there's no physical controls? We're coming back with more Geek Therapy Radio. I'm going to talk about the Nvidia GTX 1070Ti, why that's a fart knocker, while Nvidia's kind of a fart knocker for releasing it. But more Geek Therapy Radio to come. I'm Johnny Hamburger. What's your geek thing? What are you a geek about? Let me know on my Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, also Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube, and Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. The show keeps growing and growing. Thank you very much. It's a slow, steady process, and I love each of you so much for being a part of it. The email is geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. That's geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. Record yourself saying, "You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio," and I will put it on the air. So send me those audio clips of yourself saying, "You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio." Or you could say, "You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio and geeks are sexy." Whatever you want to say about listening to Geek Therapy Radio, email them to me. geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. That's geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. And I will use your voice in the bumps in and out of these segments. So on that note, thank you very much. This was a long segment, which means the next two are going to be a little bit shorter. I'm Johnny Hamburger. You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio. Up next, we're going to be talking about the Nvidia GTX 1070Ti and a bunch of other really nerdly topics. So stay tuned, fart knockers. You're not fart knockers. You're my geeks, and I love you. And you're smart, and you're intelligent, and you're beautiful. Thank you for being geeks and staying with me. I just like to say, fart knocker. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hamburger. And what am I holding in my hand right now? You can see it if you go to Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube. And please subscribe. It takes no effort. Just subscribe. I mean, I drive around this town and I see people not using turn signals. If there's something that takes less effort than using a turn signal, it's clicking the subscribe button on Facebook. So just do it. You never have to watch me again. But just click the subscribe button. I think that you will, though. I think you love Geek Therapy Radio. And if you don't, that's fine, too. I still love you. Anyways, go into Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook and see what I'm holding. A DJI Mavic Pro. I finally got it. And I've been flying it around. I'm going to upload some footage to the Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube. And you can see all the pretty sights that I see flying around with my DJI Mavic. Oh, it is so nice. And let me unfold it for you on YouTube so that you can see it. It's not new. This is not a new device on the market at all. It's been out for a year or so. But I finally got it because my Phantom 3 is indisposed, or the camera is. And I was like, well, I'm going to drop some coin anyways. Should I get the new Mavic, or should I just get a new camera for the Phantom 3? And I went ahead and got the Mavic, and I have no buyer's remorse. It is awesome. It is so cool. And go to Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook to see some footage from the DJI Mavic. I thought about recording a segment of Geek Therapy Radio just with the Mavic in tripod mode, where it basically just hovers in place, rock solid. But then I was like, you know what? All the microphone would pick up would be for the entire segment, and that's not good radio. So yeah, got my DJI Mavic, and I am going to move on to what I was going to talk about this segment, which is the new Nvidia GTX 1070Ti. I said I was going to call Nvidia a fartknocker for this. Nvidia, you are a fartknocker for releasing the GTX 1070Ti. Let me explain why. Like the Razer phone, the product itself is wonderful. There's nothing wrong, depending how you look at it, with the GTX 1070Ti. The problem with it is where it's placed in the marketplace and what it does to AMD, Nvidia's competitor, which the capitalist side of me is thinking, I don't care what it does to the competitor. That's the whole point of that benefits the consumer, is the competition in the marketplace. Unless we're talking about healthcare, then it benefits nobody. But anyways, the 1070 Ti basically just Nvidia or AMD released the Vega 56 and 64 GPUs, which are not very power efficient and do not compete at all with the GTX 1080, and especially not the 1080 Ti, and especially not the Titan X. So the Vega 56 and 64 fits somewhere in between the GTX 1070 and GTX 1080 from Nvidia. So why Nvidia is a fart knocker morally is they said, our competitor AMD released these video cards that fit right neatly between the performance of our GTX 1070 and our GTX 1080. What can we do to assert dominance in that little tiny area between the 1070 and the 1080? We'll release the 1070 Ti, which is just barely less powerful than the GTX 1080. Basically, you can think of the 1070 Ti as a budget 1080. It uses the same architecture, uses the same chip. The only area where it's different is a slightly lower core clock, and the GTX 1080 uses GDDR5X memory, and the 1070 Ti uses just plain old GDDR5. So basically what this does is it's overclockable, of course. You can overclock it. I'm not going to get into the whole rub of base clocks being locked for third-party manufacturers. Let's say MSI wants to release their version of the GTX 1070 Ti. The base clock, they can't alter with that. It's still, the base clock is locked to, where is it? I can bring up the figure, but it really doesn't entirely matter. The point is that the base clock is locked even for third-party manufacturers, which some argue is kind of a D move on Nvidia's part, and for some reason I can't bring up the GTX 1070 page, but whatever. Oh, here it is. So the base clock of the 1070 Ti, the core clock, is 1607 megahertz, and that's locked. So a third-party manufacturer can't bring it up to 1700 megahertz per se, base clock, core clock. It can still overclock. You can still use MSI Afterburner or whatever third-party program you have to overclock the card and get really great results from the 1070 Ti. A 1070 Ti overclocked beats a 1080's base clock, standard clock, non-overclock. And that kind of, I just don't know really what to think about the 1070 Ti, because it seems like it seems like, and I'll just say it because I'm past the watershed, seems like a dick move on NVIDIA's part, because basically the 1070 Ti's performance, give or take in certain applications, is, let's just say, equal to the AMD Vega 56. Let's say it's just equal. So that means, and roughly the 60, whatever. NVIDIA that was a direct kill shot. That was a direct headshot kill shot at AMD. Because who would I recommend the 1070 Ti to? Nobody. Should you go out and buy the Nvidia GTX 1070 Ti when for just a couple extra dollars you can have a full-fledged 1080 in GDDR5X memory? Should anyone buy the GTX 1070 Ti when the 1080 exists? Sure you can. I don't recommend it. I don't know why you would. It's so close in performance to the 1080, and then especially when you overclock, it's a little better than a 1080. Then again, a 1080 overclocked will be better than the 70 Ti. So that's my issue with it. There was no reason to release the 1070 Ti other than to put the kill shot on AMD's Vega 56 and 64 GPUs. Is the 1070 Ti, in my opinion, a better card than, let's say, the AMD Vega 56? Yes, marginally. You know why? It's not even because performance figures. It's because of the efficiency. It's just because the TDP is lower than AMD's product. So that's why if you're, I struggle so much with a 1070 Ti. Am I gonna get one? No, I am not gonna get a 1070 Ti. It seems pointless to me. If I want a 1070 Ti, I will overclock a 1070. A 1070 is cheaper. And if I want a 1070 Ti, I'll just get a 1080 because it's only a little bit more expensive. What is the point of the 1070 Ti? Why did you do this, NVIDIA? And again, like, I know it was a kill shot at AMD's Vega offerings. With that, if someone gave me a 1070 Ti for free, I'd take it. What I'm rocking in my system right now, my gaming setup, is still a 980, not even a 980 Ti. And I'm debating whether I want to go with getting just another 980 and doing an SLI setup, even though like hardly any games are set up for SLI to take advantage, to optimize SLI. So if someone wanted to give me a 1070 Ti to upgrade my old 980, sure, I take it. Am I going to spend my own money on a 1070 Ti? No. Would I spend my own money on a 1080? Probably. Would I spend my own money on a 1080 Ti? Yeah, if I had the funds. Absolutely, I'd do that. 1070 Ti is beast mode. It's like 90 whatever percent as good as a Titan at a fraction of the cost. And unless you're doing lots of 3D rendering, like that's your profession, then there's no reason to get a Titan X when you can have a 1080 Ti that is just marginally less. And as far as gaming goes, negligible. And as far as performance goes. So 1070 Ti, I don't understand why it exists other than just to be a fart knocker to AMD. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. Use this break to go like Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook and go subscribe to Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube and go follow Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. I post some cool stuff on there, some nerdy stuff. I don't even know what to talk about in the next segment. It's going to be kind of a shorter segment since I'm taking so long with these segments. I think I'm going to get nostalgic a little bit about some old 8-bit computing. Yeah, I am. So stick around. More Geek Therapy Radio to come. We're going to wrap it up after the next segment. I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. On Spreaker, on iTunes, on the iHeartRadio app. Just subscribe to the podcast and you'll have me each week commercial free. Johnny Hamburger, Geek Therapy Radio. Geeks are sexy. We'll be right back.
Get down.
welcome back to the final segment of GTR, Geek Therapy Radio, where there's a little geek in all of us, and geeks are sexy. I'm Johnny Hemberger, your mental curator for this evening, or for whenever you're listening to Geek Therapy Radio, if you're listening to it as a podcast. I said a few weeks ago, take me in the shower with you. Set your phone on the toilet, play the show through your external speaker, or play it through a Bluetooth speaker. Take me in the shower with you. It's nothing sexual. I don't need to be seeing all that for most of you. I don't want to be seeing all that. I have a girlfriend I'm taking. I'm good. I don't need to see. I don't need to see you. I don't need to see you. That's not even in my wheelhouse of desires. Before I keep talking myself down into an inescapable pit, let's touch on a few quick tech things. Mercedes brings 48-volt electrical system to the 2018 E-Class. I should stop talking into my mug because it makes it sound a little bit weird. This is my pumpkin spice coffee. It's creamer. It's pumpkin spice creamer. So Mercedes 48-volt electrical system to the 2018 E-Class. That's not an electric vehicle. Normally, cars operate on your car battery is 12 volts. That's the way it's been for a long time. Old cars, like really old Volkswagen Beetles, for instance, operate on 6-volt systems. So now, perhaps we're going to 48 volt. At least the 2018 E-Class is ushering in 48-volt electrical system. So the voltage coming out of your cigarette lighter, they'll probably still step it down to 12 volts. But anyways, why? I didn't plan on talking so much about this, but it keeps popping into my head. Why 48 volts? Because more volts, more current you're able to get through your car. And as cars become more and more reliant upon computers and screens and technology, the old batteries are, that's a lot of current to push through 12 volts. So 48 volts widens the current. Also, interestingly, as a safety hazard, 48 volts, I believe, is what it takes to break human skin. To get shocked, I believe 48 volts is it. So like when those hand buzzers that you shake and, bzz, and you get a shock, it's 48 volts. Is it volt? No. It's like thousands of volts, but at a very, 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 very minuscule amperage. Anyways, but 48 volts. So that seems dangerous to me. Maybe someone can correct me on that. Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. Go light me up. Go flame me on Facebook. That 48 volts isn't what it takes to break human skin, but I think that's it. Cheap new alloy makes it might double the capacity of lithium-ion batteries. Well, they won't be called lithium-ion. It'll be whatever this new alloy is called. But I've mentioned that on shows very, very a long time ago. My biggest complaint about smartwatches, for instance, I got mine charging back there, oddly enough, is that the batteries just aren't there to make them viable. I don't like having to charge my watch every day or two. I want my watch just to last and last and last. That's why I love Pebbles. Pebbles last from 7 to 10 days. Why do you have to recharge your watch every day? My biggest complaint against the Apple Watch is that you can only get 18 hours of it. That was stupid. Not even a full day out of a watch. That's one big hindrance. So if we can double the storage of batteries easily with this cheap new alloy, that's all the better for wearables and microelectronics. The new Last Jedi trailer has come out, and I'm not going to give any giveaways, any spoilers about the trailer. I'm not a huge Star Wars nerd. I do enjoy Star Wars thoroughly, but I'm not going to give away any spoilers about it. The thing that's crazy about this new Star Wars coming out is how much money Disney is asking theaters for. Disney is asking for 65% of the ticket sales. 65%. Normal used to be anywhere between 40 and 60 on the highest. But Disney thinks this is going to be such a blockbuster that they can get away with asking for 65% of ticket sales, and the theaters are going to do it. Because if they don't do it, they cannot show Star Wars. So 65% ticket sales sets a new benchmark, and the new Star Wars is going to do that. Mickey Mouse is going to make a lot of money. A lot more money. So I was going to geek out a little bit just a tiny little bit about 8-bit computing. We had a band meeting at church. We had a band meeting. We were sitting around talking about the future direction of where we want to take the band. And band geeks, we're nerds about old stuff, and we were talking about how blank CDs are getting more expensive. And I said, I haven't really noticed that. I'm not saying that's not true, but I did, oddly enough, go on Amazon last night to order blank cassette tapes, and blank cassette tapes are super expensive compared to, obviously what they were in the 90s and 80s. Basically, two 90-minute high bias tapes were about $7, so that's about $3.50 per tape, which doesn't sound like a ton of money, but it's a cassette tape. You used to be able to buy those things in bulk, $5 for like 10 high bias cassette tapes. That's what it used to be. Now, if you want to buy a bulk pack of 10 high bias cassette tapes, $40 if you're lucky. So that's still a few dollars per tape. Tape is getting expensive. And so one of my bandmates asked me, it might have been my girlfriend. She probably said, why do you want cassette tapes? Or who asked me, why do I want cassette tapes? It's because I'm a nerd. It's because I want to record stuff to the cassette tapes, namely vinyl, because I still have a vehicle, the DeLorean and the MR2 Spider, that still have cassette decks. And what I want to do is record my vinyl records, unmolested analog, onto cassette tapes to listen to them pure in my tape deck. Foo Fighters' Wasting Light, for instance, was recorded pure analog to tape. It never touched a computer ever. So if you bought the vinyl of Wasting Light by Foo Fighters, you have an unmolested sound wave going from Dave Grohl's guitar, for instance, to the vinyl to your ears. Pure sound wave. So I want to conserve that pure sound wave onto a pure analog format. Cassette to listen to in my awesome Sony cassette player, to listen to in the DeLorean, to listen to in the MR2 Spider. Also, I've got a Commodore 64, and I want to burn. We don't burn anything anymore. I want to record software onto the cassette tape to play back, to load into my Commodore 64. So that's why I buy cassette tapes still. They are expensive, and that is how I nerd out a little bit still with 8-bit computing, as I bought cassette tapes to record software onto, backup software onto, to load programs onto my Commodore 64. And with that, Geek Therapy Radio is over. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I had a lot of fun with this episode. Astros won the World Series. Houston, we are World Series champions. Some of us are still fixing our houses after the flood, but we are World Series champions. That championship meant so much to our city. I love you. I wanted to leave you with one thing on my way out, as I usually do, and actually had a specific thing. Think about how you... I'll just use this phrase. Think about how you say, for instance, I hate people who... For instance, in my case, I hate people who don't use turn signals. That's not the phrase we mean. That's not what we mean in our heart, but that maybe is what we feel in our heart. Maybe if we change our vocabulary, change our syntax, it will change our hearts. So instead of saying, I hate people who don't use their turn signals, what you really mean to say is, I hate when people don't use turn signals. Or I hate when somebody does this. Not, I hate people who have crying babies in restaurants. Just say, I hate when people's babies cry in restaurants. In other words, it's okay to dislike someone's action rather than hating the person. That's a strong word. So I hate people versus I hate when people. Don't hate people, especially not yourself. Don't say, I hate myself when I eat too much cake. Instead, I hate when I eat too much cake. That's a whole mentality shift right there. Did you ever think about that? That popped into my head like 2 years ago, and it's something I've really tried to remember. Thank you for listening to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hemberger. We'll be back next week with more GTR. Remember, I can't even talk. Remember that geeks are sexy, and there's a little geek in all of us. Find your geek thing. Go play with Legos. Go play with your computers. Go play with your instrument that you haven't played in a while. Get happy fingers. Get the indents in your fingers from playing guitar. Just love yourselves. And one way to love yourself is to have a hobby and partake in that hobby. Spend 5 to 10 minutes this week with your hobby. I love you all. This has been Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hamburger signing out for this week. Take care, everybody.